Hey Bats and Ghouls, welcome back to yet another episode of Goth in an Alcove. I'm Ian, your illustrious host, and this time around I decided I'm going to shake things up a little bit. I'm going to break up my videos. I'm going to try to do updates twice weekly, and I want to break the videos up, one video being music focused and another one being more goth slash gothic slash darkly inclined slash geekly subculture focused. So, without further ado, this week the music I'm going to do is a band from the 90s. I'm not going to focus on just a one cut or CD from the band or one album. What I'm going to do is just talk about the band in general, because this band was, I feel, highly underrated. It was not a band that you heard a lot of in goth clubs. Yet, here we are nearly 20-something years later, and this band has a new release out, and they are also going to be playing at Wave-Gotik Treffen, coming up in just a few months. So we're now in, April, so 2 months from now? And that's the only place they're playing at around the globe. That's pretty badass, in my opinion. I'm sure they're playing lots of gigs in their hometown, but on their website and from what I've been able to see, they're not doing any touring. So without further ado, this band that I'm going to introduce you guys to is a gothic band, or a goth band, more darkwave, called Autumn. They had their first release out back in 1997 under the album The Hating Tree. I heard it through an employer, actually. I was working for a company in Atlanta, and the guy I was working for, he brought in one of their CDs and played it. Needless to say, this was an alternative clothing company that I worked for. They catered to a lot of goth shops, but that doesn't matter. What matters is Autumn, and I heard their sound. I loved it right away. They are evoking some Cure in their sound, especially on their guitar. Their lead singer, her name is Julie Plant. She has a really unique voice that's not quite what we're used to hearing with female goth fronting singers. Some of their songs, when you read the lyrics, they do tend to have some of the stereotypical trappings of goth music, where they focus on rituals and altars and incense and tragedy and loss and suffering and revenge and hope and reflection of the human soul. And so that's why I feel like they, at that point in my life, really spoke to me. I was in my early to mid 20s, and like I said, I just fell in love with their sound. So what I did at that point, I reached out to the band, and I was in contact with the guitarist Neil, and he was really friendly, really outgoing. They were doing their first US tour. Unfortunately, I missed their show when they came to town, and I regret that to this day, but nonetheless, they are back. This is a great CD in my opinion. Like I said, it's got a very reminiscent of early The Cure. Neil even says they were heavily influenced by The Cure, as a lot of goth bands were in the 90s. So my tracks that I enjoyed off of this was their lead track, which is How It Came to Be This Way. That one you hear a lot of talk about, it seems very personal, perhaps, I'm going to say to Julie, but I could be wrong, but it sounds like a very personal song. It was one of their lead tracks that they were putting out there, promoting back in the late 90s through various online sources, which were cutting edge at that point. Now we've got YouTube and Bandcamp and Spotify and so on and so forth, FM, Pandora, but you didn't have that back then, so that was one of the tracks they were promoting heavily. Another one that they promoted, which is one of my favorite songs on this, is Desert Winds of Jezebel. And then Seconds was one that they really heavily promoted as well. And then my absolute favorite on it is Resurrection. So that was their debut album, was on Test Records, who is now defunct. They did sign up recently with Sett Records. So congrats. They have a new music video, which I'll link below, that just came out. They have a new song that it's called The Fall. And you'd think the fall would have to do with autumn, seasonal, but it's more of a personal nature. They sound great. Yeah, they look older, we all do. 20 years has passed, but their sound still harks back to that 90's Darkwave vibe, and they absolutely nailed it. They're definitely much more polished, more mature. You can see that their life's journeys have led them to where they're at musically now. So it's a really good song. I enjoyed it. Again, I'll link that video down below. Their sophomore album, which was called Return to the Breath, they have a few tracks on it that I enjoyed. I will admit it's not my favorite of the two releases that they've had. They've also been on a couple of compilation CDs as well throughout the early 2000s and late 90s. But The Hating Tree is absolutely, to this day still listen to it again and again and again. I make no apologies about that. It's just got a really unique, distinct sound. Very sweeping and lush and ethereal and yet hard-hitting at the same time. And Julie's vocals just knock it out of the park for me. I don't want to leave anyone out because they are a trio, and their bassist, Jeff Leda, he does bass and cello. And man, like the three of them together, great trio. Check it out, Autumn. I'm playing a few cuts of their music on this video, and I hope you enjoy. Leave feedback, subscribe, like the video, tell me what you didn't like, what you did like, and I'm excited to be here, man. Like, let's get spooky. So, later.